My parents told me I had 1 week to get out of the house. I bought myself because my brother needed it more after his failed marriage. They expected me to hand it over quietly. Instead, I sold the house. I, 29, male, have been living in my older brother, 32, male, Connor's shadow since I could walk. From the moment that smug bastard learned to talk, I became invisible in my own house. Picture this. I'm 6 years old, trying to show my dad this cool drawing I made of our family. Connor, being 8 and already a master manipulator, walks in with a report card full of B's, and suddenly, I'm chopped liver. My parents acted like he just cured cancer. Meanwhile, I'm standing there like, hey, remember me, your other son? The favoritism wasn't even subtle. I remember this one time when I was maybe 10. I won the regional wrestling tournament in my weight class. Trained for months, dominated kids who were way bigger than me, came home with this massive trophy. You know what my dad said? Good job. Now, don't let it go to your head. That's it. But when Connor made JV basketball as a sophomore, which literally half the school made, they threw him a freaking celebration dinner at Outback Steakhouse. The worst part? Connor figured out real quick that he could get away with everything. The kid was manipulating my parents like a chess grandmaster by middle school. He'd break something, blame me, and they'd believe him every single time. I got grounded for a week once because he accidentally deleted my dad's work presentation off the computer. Connor sitting right there with a guilty smirk, but somehow it was my fault for not backing up the files.
As we got older, it got worse.
Connor turned into your typical golden boy who could do no wrong. Star athlete, popular with girls, charismatic as hell when he wanted to be. The problem was, success went straight to his head and turned him into an entitled narcissist who thought the world owed him everything. My parents ate it up. Every girlfriend was the one. Every job opportunity was amazing. Every stupid decision was just Connor finding himself. Meanwhile, I'm working construction summers to save for college, while Connor's blowing through money on spring break trips they couldn't afford. The breaking point came when I was 17. I'd just gotten accepted to state school with a partial academic scholarship, and I was proud as hell. You know what my graduation gift was? A $20 gas card, and a lecture about how college is expensive, so make it count. Connor's high school graduation 2 years earlier, they bought him a damn car. A car for a kid who'd never worked a day in his life. So I did what any self-respecting guy would do. I made a mental note that these people were never going to appreciate me, and I started planning my escape. Connor, meanwhile, kept riding the wave of being everyone's favorite. Got into a decent college on my parents' dime, partied his way through a communications degree, and somehow landed a sales job that paid decent money right out of school. Everything just fell into his lap while I was grinding. But here's the thing about golden children. When life is handed to you on a silver platter for 25 years, you never develop the skills to deal with actual consequences. That lesson was coming from my brother. Hard. Moving out at 18 with $400 in my bank account and a duffel bag wasn't exactly the American dream, but it was freedom. I found this studio apartment near campus that smelled like cigarettes and sadness. Rent was $450 a month, which left me about $60 for food after tuition. College was a blur of ramen noodles, energy drinks, and working every job I could find. I waited tables at a sports bar, did landscaping on weekends, and during summers I worked construction and oil field jobs. My parents, they'd text me on my birthday and at Christmas. That was it. All their attention was focused on making sure Connor had everything he needed to succeed. New laptop for college, money for internships in expensive cities, connections through my dad's work buddies, the red carpet treatment. The construction and oil field work was actually a blessing in disguise. Working with those guys taught me more about life and money than any college course ever did. They didn't care about your feelings or your family drama. You showed up, did the work, got paid, or got the hell out. I learned to keep my mouth shut, work harder than everyone else, and most importantly, I learned that money talks and walks. After 4 years of grinding, I graduated with a degree in business finance and a job offer at a regional bank doing commercial lending. Nothing glamorous, but it was $45,000 a year with benefits and room to grow. More importantly, it taught me how money actually works, how to invest, how credit works, how to spot financial fraud from a mile away. Meanwhile, Connor was living it up in his sales job, making decent money, but spending every penny on his lifestyle. Nice apartment, new car every few years, expensive clothes, constantly posting Instagram stories from fancy restaurants and weekend trips. He was making $70,000, but living like he was making $200,000. I, on the other hand, was living like a monk. I drove my beat-up car until the wheels fell off, bought generic everything, and put every spare dollar into investments and savings. My coworkers thought I was crazy. "Dude, live a little," they'd say. But they didn't get it. This wasn't just about having money. This was about never being dependent on anyone ever again. At 25, Connor met Sarah. Beautiful, smart, came from money, worked as a nurse. My parents acted like he'd won the lottery. "Finally, Connor's settling down with a good girl," they'd say. The engagement party was a $15,000 affair that my parents somehow found the money for. The wedding was even bigger. Destination wedding in Mexico, open bar, the works. I was invited, of course, but as an afterthought. No groomsman invitation, no special role. Just, Alan will be there too. I showed up, smiled for the pictures, and watched my parents beam with pride as their golden boy tied the knot with his perfect wife. Sarah was actually cool. Down to earth, hard-working, didn't put up with Connor's crap when he got too cocky. For a few years there, it looked like maybe marriage would mature him a little. They bought a house, talked about kids, and seemed happy. What I didn't know was that Connor was already showing signs of the entitlement that would eventually destroy his life. Sarah was making good money as a nurse, and instead of using both incomes to build wealth, Connor saw it as an excuse to spend even more. Bigger house, fancier cars, expensive vacations. They financed with credit cards. But he had never learned the difference between looking successful and actually being successful. And when you're living a lifestyle you can't afford, eventually the bills come due. The cracks started showing around year 3 of their marriage. His sales numbers were slipping because he'd gotten complacent. Instead of working harder, he started blaming everyone else. His manager, bad leads, the economy, whatever. His income dropped, but his spending didn't. Meanwhile, I'd been steadily climbing the ladder at the bank, got promoted to senior lending officer, then assistant branch manager. I found a perfect house in a decent neighborhood. 3 bedrooms, small yard, updated kitchen. The mortgage payment was less than most people's rent, and every dollar was going toward building equity in something that belonged to me. The day I got the keys was one of the best days of my life. I stood in that empty living room, looked around at the hardwood floors and the big windows, and felt something I'd never felt before. Security. Every square foot represented late nights, double shifts, and saying no to things I wanted so I could afford something I needed. I called my parents to share the news, thinking maybe this time they'd acknowledge that I'd done something worth celebrating. "That's nice, honey," my mom said, barely looking up from her phone when I showed her the photos. My dad's response? "Hope you can afford it. Houses are expensive." Not a congratulations. Not a, "we're proud of you." Just doubt about whether I knew what I was doing. But I saw something else in their eyes that day. Something that should have been a warning sign, but I was too happy to notice it at the time. Envy. Life was good for about 2 years. I had my house, my routine, my independence. I'd wake up every morning, make coffee in my own kitchen, and remind myself that I'd actually pulled it off. The American dream, earned the hard way. I was even trying to rebuild things with my family. Every few months I'd have them over for dinner, or bring food to their place. My parents never said thank you, but they always showed up when free food was involved. Connor and Sarah would come sometimes too, though Connor always had this weird edge when he was at my house, like it bothered him that his younger brother had himself together. Should have seen the red flags, but I'm an optimist. Or maybe just a glutton for punishment. The bomb dropped on a Thursday night last fall. I was at home grading some loan applications and watching Netflix when my phone started blowing up. Text after text from Connor, each one more frantic than the last. "Dude, I need to talk to you. Can I come over? It's important, like really important. I'm already driving over. Please be home." 20 minutes later, he was pounding on my door, looking like he'd been hit by a truck. Unshaven, eyes bloodshot, wearing the same clothes he'd probably slept in. This wasn't the cocky golden boy I'd grown up with. This was a broken man. "God, what the hell happened to you?" I asked, letting him in. He collapsed onto my couch and just sat there for a minute, staring at the floor. When he finally looked up, I could see he'd been crying. "Sarah left me," he said. "What? Why? You guys seemed fine last month." That's when the whole story came out. Connor had been cheating on Sarah for almost a year. Not just one affair, multiple women, including 2 of Sarah's coworkers from the hospital. He'd been using dating apps, meeting women at bars, basically treating his marriage like a hobby instead of a commitment. "How the hell did she find out?" I asked, though part of me was thinking he deserved whatever was coming. "She found the text messages, all of them, pictures, videos, everything." He put his head in his hands. "Alan, she's taking everything. The house, the cars, half my 401k. Her lawyer is talking about alimony because I make more than her. I'm completely screwed." The details got worse the more he talked. Sarah had hired a shark of a divorce attorney who'd done their homework. They had evidence of Connor's affairs, proof that he'd been spending marital assets on his side pieces, documentation of every expensive gift and hotel room he'd paid for with joint credit cards. "Dude, how much money are we talking about?" I asked. "All of it," he said. "The house is worth $280,000, and it'll probably go to her. She wants alimony for 5 years, child support when we have kids. Alan, I'm looking at losing like $200,000, plus ongoing payments, and that's if I'm lucky." "Wait, kids? Do you guys have kids?" "Not yet, but we were trying. Her lawyer is arguing that I damaged her future earning potential by destroying the marriage when she was ready to start a family. The legal system was about to financially destroy my brother, and honestly, he'd earned every bit of it. But this was Connor. We're talking about the golden child who'd never faced real consequences for anything in his life. Instead of accepting responsibility, he immediately started looking for someone else to solve his problem. "I need help, Alan," he said, and I could see where this was going. "I can't afford a decent lawyer to fight this. I'm going to lose everything." "Maybe you should have thought about that before you started screwing around." "Come on, man. Don't be like that. I made a mistake." "Okay, but Sarah's being vindictive as hell. She's trying to ruin my life." That's when he dropped the real bombshell. "I need money for a lawyer. Like a lot of money. $30,000, maybe $40,000 to fight this properly." I stared at him. "Are you freaking serious right now? You're my brother, Alan. You're the only person I can ask. Mom and Dad don't have that kind of money." "Neither do I. You've got this house, your job, your savings. You could get a loan against the house or cash out some investments." The audacity was breathtaking. My brother had destroyed his marriage by his own hand, and now he wanted me to mortgage my house, to pay for a lawyer, to help him screw over his wife even more. "Absolutely not," I said. "You made this mess. You deal with the consequences." We argued for hours, him begging, pleading, promising he'd pay me back, swearing this was all just a misunderstanding. Me pointing out that he was a grown man who'd made grown man choices and needed to handle consequences. "You've always been jealous of me," he finally said when it became clear I wasn't budging. "This is your chance to watch me fail, isn't it? You're loving this." "I'm not jealous of you, Connor. I feel sorry for you. But I'm not going to bankrupt myself to fix your screw-ups." He left that night looking defeated, but I could see something else in his eyes. Anger. Like this was somehow my fault for not rescuing him. That should have been the end of it. He deals with his divorce, learns a hard lesson about actions and consequences, and hopefully grows up a little. But golden children don't learn lessons, and my parents were about to prove that they'd never stopped enabling their precious firstborn. The breaking point came 3 weeks later on a Saturday morning that started perfectly normal and ended with me questioning everything I thought I knew about my family. I just finished a long week at work and was looking forward to sleeping in, maybe doing some yard work, just enjoying having my own space. I was on my second cup of coffee, scrolling through my phone in my kitchen, when someone started hammering on my front door like the FBI was executing a warrant. I looked through the peephole and saw both my parents standing there with expressions that made my stomach drop. My dad looked like he was about to kick someone's ass, and my mom had that pinched face she got when she was disappointed in me. I opened the door and they pushed past me without being invited. Just walked right into my living room like they owned the place. "We need to talk," my dad said, in that voice he used to use when I was grounded. "Sit down." "Good morning to you too," I said, but I stayed standing. Something about their energy was setting off every alarm bell in my head. "Connor told us about your conversation," my mom said, crossing her arms, "about how you refused to help him." "You mean when I refused to mortgage my house to pay for his divorce lawyer?" "Yeah. That happened." My dad took a step closer to me, and for a second, I thought he might actually swing. "Your brother is in trouble, Alan. Real trouble. And family helps family. Connor's in trouble because he cheated on his wife with multiple women for a year. Those are called consequences." "Alan, don't get smart with me," he snapped. "Connor made a mistake, but Sarah's trying to destroy him. She wants to take everything he's worked for." The hypocrisy was stunning. Connor had literally destroyed his own marriage, but somehow Sarah was the villain for not rolling over and letting him keep everything? "What exactly do you want from me?" I asked, though I had a feeling I already knew. My dad straightened up and looked me dead in the eye. "We've been thinking about your situation here." "My situation?" "You're 29 years old, single, living alone in a 3-bedroom house. That's a lot of space for one person." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "And Connor needs a place to stay while he gets back on his feet. This house is perfect for him. 3 bedrooms, quiet neighborhood, good location. He could rent out the extra rooms to help cover expenses." "Are you suggesting Connor move in with me?" "We're not suggesting anything," my mom said. "We're telling you what's going to happen. Connor is moving in here, and you're going to help him through this difficult time." I laughed. Actually laughed out loud. "You're both out of your damn minds if you think I'm letting Connor move into my house." "This isn't a negotiation," my dad said, his voice getting dangerously quiet. "This is what families do for each other. Your brother needs help, and you're going to provide it." "The hell I am." That's when my dad dropped the bomb. "Actually, we've been thinking about this wrong," he said, and the look in his eyes made my blood run cold. "Connor doesn't need to move in with you. He needs his own place, his own fresh start." "Okay, so he can go find an apartment." "He can't afford an apartment, but he can afford this house." The room went dead silent. I stared at them, trying to process what I just heard. "What did you just say?" "This house is too much for you anyway," my mom said, like she was being reasonable. "The payments, the maintenance, the responsibility. You're not really ready for home ownership, but Connor is. He needs stability, and this place would be perfect for him." "Connor can have the house," my dad said. "You can move back home with us until you figure out your next step. It's the right thing to do." For a few seconds, I literally couldn't speak. These people had just walked into my house, the house I'd bought with my own money, that I'd worked myself into the ground to afford, and told me I was giving it to my cheating, irresponsible brother. "Are you completely freaking insane?" I finally managed to say. "Watch your language," my mom snapped. "We're your parents, and you'll show some respect." "Respect?" I was seeing red. "Now you want to talk about respect? You just walked into my house and told me I'm handing it over to Connor because his marriage imploded after he decided to screw half the city." "Connor needs this more than you do," Dad said. "He's got bigger problems, bigger responsibilities. You're young. You can start over. He's 3 years older than me, but he's been through a divorce. He's lost everything. You don't understand what that's like." He had lost everything because he'd thrown it away. But somehow, in my parents' twisted logic, that meant I should sacrifice everything I'd built to fix his problems. "This is my house," I said, my voice deadly calm. "I bought it. I pay the mortgage. You have absolutely no right to walk in here. And we have every right, my dad interrupted. We're your family, and sometimes family means making sacrifices for the people you love. Where was that energy when I needed help getting through college? When I was working 3 jobs and eating ramen every night? That was different, my mom said. You were young. You needed to learn responsibility. Connor is going through a crisis. This isn't about fairness, Alan, my dad said. This is about doing what's right. That's when I realized the truth. It was never going to be fair. Connor would always be their priority. No matter what he did or how badly he screwed up, I could work myself to death, build a successful life, buy a house, and achieve everything they'd supposedly wanted for me. But the second their golden boy needed something, I was expected to hand it over without question. Get out, I said quietly. What? Get the hell out of my house. My dad's face turned purple. You ungrateful! After everything we've done for you. What have you done for me? I cut him off. Name one thing you've ever done for me that you didn't do 10 times more for Connor. Silence. That's what I thought. Now get out before I call the police and have you trespassed. They left, but not before my dad turned around at the door and said the words that sealed their fate. You have 1 week to pack your things, Alan. 1 week to do the right thing. After that, we'll handle this ourselves. I stood there in my living room, shaking with rage, watching their car disappear down my street. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. If they wanted my house so badly, they could have it, but not the way they thought. I didn't sleep that night, not even close. I sat on my couch until sunrise, staring at the wall, thinking about every moment that had led to this. Every time I'd been ignored, every sacrifice I'd made for people who saw me as a backup plan, every dollar I'd handed over to support Connor's lifestyle while my own needs were dismissed. I was done. Not just with this house situation, with all of it. The whole toxic dynamic, the endless cycle of Connor screwing up and everyone else cleaning up his mess. The constant expectation that I should be grateful for scraps while he got served a feast. If my parents thought they could intimidate me into handing over my house to their precious golden boy, they were about to learn exactly how wrong they were. Around 6 a.m., thinking more clearly than I had in years, I started making phone calls. First, to a real estate agent who specialized in quick sales, then to an apartment hunting service, then to my bank to discuss liquidating some investments. The plan was beautiful in its simplicity. My parents had given me 1 week to do the right thing. What they didn't realize was that I was absolutely going to do the right thing for me. The real estate agent, a sharp woman named Rebecca who clearly knew her stuff, came by Monday evening to assess the house. She walked through every room, took notes, checked recent sales in the neighborhood. In this market, with the condition your house is in, we could easily get asking price, she told me. Maybe even start a bidding war if we price it right. How fast do you need to move? Faster than fast, I said. Like, if I could close by Friday, that would be perfect. She raised an eyebrow. That's extremely tight, but not impossible. If we find a cash buyer or someone with pre-approval ready to go, it'll mean pricing it to sell quickly, though. Price it to move. I don't care if I leave money on the table. Speed is everything. While Rebecca was setting up the listing and scheduling a photographer, I was executing phase 2, finding a new place to live, not another house. That would take too long. A nice apartment, something I could move into immediately. I found a perfect 1-bedroom place downtown, walking distance from work, available immediately. The landlord was happy to have a tenant with good credit and stable income, especially one willing to pay first and last month's rent, plus deposit in cash. By Wednesday, I had signed a lease and started moving my stuff. I rented a storage unit for furniture I couldn't fit in the apartment and began removing every trace of my life from the house. It needed to look good for showings, but more importantly, I wanted to be completely moved out before my family figured out what was happening. The security camera by my front door was going to be my front row seat to the chaos I was about to unleash. I'd installed it a year earlier for normal security reasons, but now it was going to document the moment my family's world exploded. Wednesday afternoon, Rebecca called with news. We've got multiple offers, she said. 3 of them are cash, all above asking price. There's a young couple who fell in love with the place and want to close Friday if possible. They're offering $15,000 over asking and waiving inspection.
Done, I said without hesitation.
Thursday morning, I met the buyers, David and Michelle, both doctors relocating from another state for new jobs. They loved the house, loved the neighborhood, and had the financial backing to close immediately. We've been looking for months, Michelle told me as we signed the papers. Everything decent gets snapped up so fast in this market. This place is exactly what we've been hoping for. I was genuinely happy for them. They seemed like good people who would appreciate the house the way I had. And knowing that my house was going to people who'd actually earned it, instead of my deadbeat brother, made the whole thing feel like justice. Friday morning, we closed. Just like that, the house was no longer mine. David and Michelle got the keys. I got a check that was more money than I'd ever seen in one place. And my family's master plan went up in smoke before they even knew there was a fire. I spent Friday afternoon in my new apartment watching my security camera app and waiting for the fireworks to begin. Saturday morning, I woke up early, made coffee in my new kitchen, and settled in to watch my family's world implode. I ordered pizza for breakfast because I felt like celebrating. At 9:23 a.m., my phone buzzed with a motion alert from the camera. Showtime. The footage was better than any movie I'd ever seen. There they came, rolling up to what used to be my house, like they were moving into a mansion they'd inherited. My dad's SUV pulling a U-Haul trailer, my mom in the passenger seat with a smug look on her face, and Connor following behind in his beat-up BMW with the back seat packed full of boxes. They'd really come prepared for a full takeover. Through the camera, I could see furniture strapped to the roof of Connor's car, and what looked like his entire life packed into that trailer. My dad was walking around like he owned the place, probably feeling real proud of himself for teaching me a lesson. The first sign that something was wrong came when Connor walked up to the front door and started fishing around in his pocket for keys that didn't exist. He tried the handle, knocked a few times, then stepped back with a confused look on his face. I watched my dad march up to the door and start pounding on it with his fist. "Alan!" he shouted loud enough that the camera picked up the audio. "Open this door! We're here to help Connor move in." I turned off my phone's ringer and watched call after call after call light up my screen. 57 missed calls in 15 minutes, each one making my dad's face redder through the camera. I didn't answer a single one, but I did screenshot every call log for evidence later. That's when Connor decided to take matters into his own hands. I watched him walk around to the backyard and come back a few minutes later with a landscaping brick from the garden bed. My dad was shouting something at him, probably telling him to break in, because Connor took that brick and smashed it through my living room window. The sound of breaking glass was satisfying as hell through my phone speaker. All three of them climbed through the window, and for about 10 minutes, the camera just showed an empty front yard with a broken window and a U-Haul. I could only imagine what they were finding inside. David and Michelle's furniture, their family photos, their stuff scattered around the house. Nothing that belonged to me, and definitely nothing that belonged to them. Then Connor came charging out the front door like his ass was on fire, screaming something I couldn't quite make out. He was carrying a box that definitely wasn't his, and throwing things from inside the house onto the front lawn. My parents followed him out, and I could see my mom gesturing wildly at the house, while my dad stood there looking like someone had just told him his lottery ticket was fake. That's when David and Michelle pulled up. They got out of their car, saw 3 people ransacking their house and throwing their belongings around their front yard. And Michelle immediately started screaming, "Thieves! Someone's robbing our house!" David, who looked like the kind of guy who played college football and still hit the gym regularly, marched straight up to Connor and grabbed the box he was holding. "What the hell are you doing with our stuff?" he shouted. Connor, still completely clueless about what was happening, started shouting back. "This is my brother's house. I don't know who you people are, but you need to get out." "Liar," David shot back, and I could see him getting ready to introduce Connor's face to his fist. "We bought this house yesterday. We have the paperwork." Michelle ran to their car and came back with a folder full of documents, the deed, the closing papers, all the legal proof they needed. She shoved them at my dad, who went white as a sheet when he realized what he was looking at. The poor guy was probably having the worst moment of clarity in his life. His brilliant plan to steal my house and give it to Connor had just blown up in his face in the most spectacular way possible. Michelle was already on her phone calling the police, while David was getting more aggressive with Connor by the second. I couldn't blame him. Someone had broken into his house and was throwing his family's stuff around. My dad kept trying to explain that he was my father, that the house should belong to the family, that he had every right to be there. But David and Michelle called the number I'd left them for emergencies. That's when I knew I had to make my grand entrance. I got dressed, grabbed some popcorn for the road, and drove over to watch the finale in person. By the time I arrived, there were 2 police cars with their lights flashing, a small crowd of neighbors watching the drama, and my family standing in the middle of it all, looking like their world had just ended. When Connor saw me pull up, he came charging toward me like a bull seeing red. "Alan, you freak! What did you do?" The cops grabbed him before he could get to me, which was probably smart because he looked ready to commit murder. I stayed calm, walked over to the officers, and explained the situation in the most reasonable voice I could manage. "Officers, this was my house until yesterday. I bought it with my own money and have all the paperwork to prove it. My family gave me an ultimatum to hand it over to my brother. I chose to sell it to this nice couple here. These 3 people broke my window, entered illegally, and were throwing the new owner's belongings around." I handed over copies of all my documents, the original deed, the sale paperwork, everything. David and Michelle backed up my story completely. The lead officer looked at Connor, who was still fighting against the handcuffs, and shook his head. "Sir, you're under arrest for breaking and entering, burglary, and destruction of property." That's when I decided to twist the knife a little deeper. "You know what, Connor?" I said loud enough for everyone to hear. "You want to call me selfish after 30 years of watching you get everything handed to you while I earned everything I have? After begging me to mortgage my house to pay for lawyers because you couldn't keep your dick in your pants? This is selfish." The silence was deafening. My parents were staring at me like I'd grown a second head. Connor looked like he wanted to murder me with his bare hands. And the neighbors were getting better entertainment than cable TV. "This was my house," I continued. "Mine, bought with my money. And you had the nerve to show up here and try to take it because your golden boy made a mess of his life. Well, guess what? I gave it to someone who actually deserves it." That's when he completely lost his mind. "You ruined my life," he screamed. "I lost everything, and you could have helped me. You're my brother." "You ruined your own life," I said calmly. "And being your brother doesn't mean I have to fix your mistakes or sacrifice my success to cover for your failures." My mom was crying. My dad looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. And Connor was still screaming threats at me from the back of the police car. As they drove him away, I realized something profound. For the first time in my life, I felt free. Connor spent 6 months in county jail. Turns out that when you break someone's window, steal their stuff, and destroy their property, there are consequences. He also had to pay hefty fines, cover David and Michelle's damages, and do community service when he got out. David and Michelle, by the way, are fantastic people. After all the legal drama settled down, they sent me a thank you card for selling them the house. They love the neighborhood. Their kids started at the local elementary school, and they've already put in a vegetable garden where I used to have my fire pit. My parents tried to rebuild the relationship exactly once. My mom called 3 weeks after Connor got arrested, crying about family forgiveness and healing the wounds. She wanted me to drop the charges against Connor and help pay for his legal fees. I listened to the whole 5-minute voicemail, laughed until my sides hurt, and blocked their numbers permanently. Connor's divorce went exactly as brutal as expected. Without the money for a decent lawyer, he got steamrolled in court. Sarah got the house, most of their assets, and 5 years of alimony. Connor's living in a studio apartment now, working at a call center and driving a car with 200,000 miles on it. Some people might think that's harsh, that everyone deserves a second chance, that family should stick together, that I went too far by cutting them all off completely. To those people, I say you've clearly never been the family scapegoat.
I spent 29 years being told I wasn't the priority.
I watched my brother get handed everything, while I had to earn everything.
The money from selling the house set me up better than I'd ever imagined.
After paying off my car and student loans, I had enough left over to max out my retirement accounts for the next few years and build an emergency fund that could last me 2 years without working. I'm living in my downtown apartment, saving money, and dating a woman who actually appreciates what I've built instead of expecting me to hand it over to someone else.
For the first time since childhood, I'm not worried about what my family thinks of me.
Because here's what nobody tells you about cutting toxic people out of your life. It's liberating.